All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. Was it all right? Okay. And I hope you had an enjoyable lunch break, and we shall now proceed with an afternoon session. As I mentioned earlier this morning, this year's conference features 6 thematic sessions, each inviting distinguished guests, speakers from Korea and abroad, to share their insights on key topics in urban lighting. It will now begin session 1 under the theme Illuminating the City, Art, Festivals, and Nightscapes. And in this session, we will hear from 3 speakers in total, each delivering about 10 minutes of their presentation. If you have any questions, please take note of it, and after each presentation, we will have a panel discussion followed by. So during the panel discussion, you will have a designated time to ask questions to our presenters, so please be noted. And to begin our session for our first presentation, I would like to invite Mr. Stanley Tay, the Managing Director of Illuminating Asia. Singapore, was it? Yes, please. Please welcome Mr. Stanley Tay with a big round of applause. 큰 박수로 모시겠습니다.
Testing. Hi, good morning, good afternoon to everyone. All esteemed guests, thank you for having us here in Korea to share a bit of our experience as a lighting consultant and what do we do for most of the time. Hopefully, the lunch has been good. Everybody's not too sleepy. I'm going to make it a little bit more fun, I hope, with my voice. If I'm too boring, just raise your hands. Okay, so in Illuminating Asia, what we've done over the years is to chart the path that's a little bit different from a typical lighting designer or lighting consultant. So we look multidisciplinary into all functions in that environment. So you can talk about landscape, architectural design, the vehicles, the infrastructure that's within the space. But most importantly, as per for today's topic, evocative experiences, it is about people. It is about the person that is using the space, how they interact with the space. And it is a little bit tricky because for each space, there are different people that is using it at the same time. And it is never possible for anyone to control who is using that space and for what purpose. You can be just walking across the road and all you need is just safety lightings, and that's that. You can be bringing your grandchildren or your children to the space to have some fun, and you wanted something more than just lighting up the wall, lighting up the floor. Likewise, if you're going there with your loved ones, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, you wanted something romantic. So how do you engage the senses? How do you make the space memorable for different people in that same environment, but letting them feel differently? So what you see over here is one project that we did in Gardens by the Bay. It's not so much about the project that I wanted to share, but it's about that experience of what you see in this picture. What do you feel as a person? Now, everybody here is different. I can't define for anyone. But importantly is you must be able to enjoy the space, you must be able to feel connected and remember the space. So in time to come, you tell people, whether 5 years down the road, 2 years down the road, I want to come back here again. I want to see the space again. I want to revisit and relive that atmosphere again. If not, well, it stays as a beautiful memory for you and for many loved ones as well. So a close look at here is in Illuminating Asia, we play with all kinds of materials. We study the reflective nature of a mirror right at the background, if you see. You have this little pond, which is a water feature right here, and then the whole bunch of landscape. When 2016 we did this project, budget is always a concern. It's never something that is not present. What we did is we used Arduino, something that in Korea, it's very popular as well. Small microcontrollers, microprocessors, and we create a firefly lighting effect that runs across the space. For any artist that comes to here, just a single tone of Moonlight Sonata, dark blue, purple maybe, with a contrasting firefly effect over here that moves. Hopefully, it inspires people to have greater ideas. But for the children, they just think it's fun. And that is what we hope to do, where a single space results in different emotions, different connections for the people. So moving forward, it's another project that we did in Haw Villa, one of probably the biggest heritage park in the whole ASEAN, 8.5 hectare land space. Now in this space itself, what you see is, yes, projection mapping. Most of the time, projection mapping has been done in many cities for temporary setups. But for this project, it's permanent. Now, when it's permanent, what we need to do is you need it to be relevant. Relevant not just for 1 month, 2 months, but for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, maybe even 7, 8 years. How do you want to stay relevant for 8 years in today's world where things are moving so quickly? What we do is we study the space, we study this heritage park, and we bring out the history through the work of artists in creating murals like that. And it's just global projectors presenting to the wall, and that's that. So what we do, well, this is an 8.5 hectare land size. I tell my mom, let's go visit. My mom says, no, it's too big, too tiring. Don't waste my time, right? So this is the problem, I would say, for a lot of people as well. So how do you want to break through this barrier? You bring the story out. You bring the story up front. You connect the space with the people. They're not just passing by. I don't expect, and I'm realistic to say that, I don't expect for whatever works that I've done, people would want to voluntarily visit. Not even my mom, right? So, by bringing out the story, hopefully we connect back what they have visited this place before, maybe 20 years ago. And with some stories, elements within, we draw them back into the space that we've lighted up. And this space goes on. Now, the fact is, it's not about lighting here that you're looking at. It's about how we make the space come alive again by bringing people back to the space. Then, that architecture, that story can continue. That environment would have footfall, not just for business, but on a whole, this space stays relevant to the community. So something like that, well, nothing special, just a little bit more fun. We add a bit of colors to this otherwise heritage space, add some gobos, make this thing move, and pretty much we try to simulate how a river flows within an architectural landscape that I have no absolute control to touch, to drill, to do anything to it, because this is Heritage Park, conserved in the UNESCO site as well. So next up, something more fun. It's an outdoor, it's a conservation space as well in Singapore Chimes. It's filled with plenty of restaurants. This is where we use lighting with different kinds of material to create artistic forms in that space. It's been featured in Milan, in London as well. What we do here is, well, we put the strips on different tree trunks. So the hard part here is not installing the lights. The hard part here is figuring out for each tree trunk and the branches, what is its measurement? And then working backwards in the engineering perspective to find a pattern. You can't have 5 cm here, 1 meter there, 2 meters there, 4 meters there. You need to find an engineering formula that you can apply to this permanent installation for future ease of maintenance, besides the fact of looking good. So this is what we do, the hard part. But beyond that is, as a designer, as a consultant ourselves, we want people to feel the space. Sometimes when the light are just static, you get a different experience. But when the light is moving up and down, it mimics how the plants, how the trees actually live within our urban environment. Hopefully it incites people to think that for the plants, for the trees that are all around you, the beautiful landscape, they're actually alive. That's what, for us, using lighting, the technology in lighting, we sought to connect people to the space again, hopefully. Right? Other than that, some of the, very standard built construction architectural environment. This is a 5-star development by 2 governments in Singapore and Malaysia. Marina 1. So we light up the architectural landscape and such. So as a lighting designer, part and parcel of our work, bread and butter, is to light up space like that. From time to time, as a lighting designer, this is the last part of things that we want to share with everybody, is here we often do not just use whatever readily available materials in the market, plonk it in, and then that's it, my job is done. That's what many experts can do. What we want to do is to still have some fun in our work. And how to do that is basically going down to the ground, working with different manufacturers to create lighting. I wouldn't even say lighting, but just creating artifacts like that, right? And then you add a bit of light bulbs in it. So, well, this is like a dandelion made of paper clips, aluminum, doesn't spoil, doesn't fail, right? And ease of maintenance. These are things that we built. So hopefully that might give the designers or the experts here today some food for thought. That sometimes it's not about just using what is readily available on the market as a complete product, but maybe breaking them apart, reassembling that again, and seeing what kind of magic it will occur or it will happen. So it's a combination of design, engineering, and tech. With that, I'll leave it all to think about, and thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stanley Tay, the Managing Director, for opening up today's conference with our first presentation. Thank you once again. And then moving on to our second presentation, we're delighted to welcome our second speaker for the session, who will present under the topic Designing the Night City. We're honored to introduce Miss Mary Ann Schreurs, honorary member of LUCI representing the city of Eindhoven. Please give a big round of applause.
This is where the whole world is jealous of. And the other thing, if I look in the room and I see so many women, I thought by myself, what is the mayor of Rabat thinking about? Well, my presentation. Of course, we all know that cities are developed in the daytime. And then there's a kind of afterthought, oh yeah, there are also things happening in the night, so we put one light in, and that was it. Of course, that doesn't work. And the French, there are a lot of French representatives here, have a wonderful expression of the going of the day to the night, entre chien et loup, so between dog and wolf. And of course, how we perceive the night is cultural and it's social, but it's also very biological and physiological. We have certain reactions because it's night and because it's the end of the day and we feel, well, there are all kinds of reasons. And this means that you really have to do something, and Stanley already told us, you have to do something, otherwise, and Lucien also talked about it, otherwise people will feel awkward. It isn't their place, they will leave it, or they, well, things like that. So it has to be designed. And then we, all here from the field, know, yeah, but we really can design the night because we have the tool. Imagine what it is that we actually have, something that can really shape public space. Okay, I'll show you some examples and then I'll go to a thought experiment to show you how the city would be developed if you started from the nighttime, and then I try, if I have time, to also talk about the day, what the day development can learn from the night development. But first, if you are talking about public space, lighting, you have to answer these questions. How is the space actually used? How is the space perceived? How do we actually want to perceive and use the space? And most of all, whom are the we? And again, in France, in Paris, you have the Place des Vosges, and it is answered in a beautiful way because what they say, it's open. It's opened for the night. Normally in parks there are always restrictions and they tell you what not to do, but they say, it's open, come in. And the conclusion you should draw is, we is really everybody, how different they are. But it won't work if you don't do something to it, because otherwise it just will be one dark spot. And this is a plane from South America. And what they did actually is they experimented with light together with the end users. And so you got the light and the dark and this is essential. If you want something to work for people, it is helpful if you talk together and do things together and test together. And in Eindhoven, for example, we tested in an area where you had a lot of pubs and people were enjoying themselves, young people, but sometimes you had brawls. And we tested with them how the light would influence their behavior. And they knew it. And the interesting thing is we could hear by the sounds they created that there would be brawls coming up. And then we could put the nice light in to subdue it a bit. And also, of course, sending people to help and upcoming brawls. But sometimes even that is not enough. Only light is not enough. And this is an example from Sydney. What they discovered is, well, actually people were killed because you had a lot of clubs, and later in the night people had difficulty in going from one club to another. And so, oh God, I'm running out of time. Well, the solution was to make it in a festival terrain, so that you didn't have the problems in public space anymore, but you had kind of facilities in public space so people could stay there. And what you have to remember is they did this together with the people, but it's an ongoing process. A few years later, it didn't work anymore, so they had to go to the following. This is a tool that you can use as a city for urban lighting, created by LUCI, and Seoul was also a part of it. Interesting thing is that it was paid for by the European Commission, but they take no responsibility for what is in it, what is strange, because it's public money. This is something that I did myself, a roadmap, to see how light would develop throughout the next 30 years. And the idea was to co-create together also with all relevant parties, including the citizens. That was an initiative to create an integral, for Braga, an integral concept for a festival. But I really want to go with you to the thought experiments. Go back to the beginning. What is very special about light? Light is an actor, and it can do different things. So in the end, what we have, and that's not the case in normal daytimes, we have a hybrid environment. An environment that can change during the night, that can change during the years, and actually it's catering for what we now know to be happening. It's our world is ever changing, and we want to change together with our citizens. Remember, it's the we, all of us. So what's so wonderful about designing the city from the perspective of the night is that A, you have a part of it that can change by a flick. Ooh. And the other thing is, of course, that you have to do it together with the people that are part of your city. And that's not only a political statement. All of us know that if you're redesigning something, it can be a hospital, you have to talk to the cleaners, you have to talk to the surgeons, you have to talk to the patients, you have to talk to the directors, because everybody has a different perspective. If you want something to work, make it work by having everybody being a piece of the solution. And of course, people tend not to be so inclined to be part of every co-creation process. And, well, maybe we couldn't solve it with jury duty or something like that. But if we really want our cities to function, it has to be that it caters for people. And what you get when you get people included is not only that you get different perspectives, but sometimes you also get something what you never expected. The whole urban scene was something that was done illegally, but it was done from society itself. In the end, this is something that fails in our development of our cities from the daytime, because what we create is a lot of bricks, a lot of concrete, and it always stays the same. It's almost like technology isn't always the solution. I put it. No, I put. Oh. Ah. My time is over. But please remember, the tool that you are able to wield enables you to create structures and environments that are really there for people to use, but can be moved by a flick of your wrist because they're made from light. And that doesn't mean they're not real. It only means that they are flexible. And as much as I enjoyed the talk of Stanley, I bid you, let's create environments that work, that are not that spectacular. They're wonderful. And as the river, it's wonderful. But just let's create normal, changeable, people-orientated environments in every street that we will all be able to use. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you once again. No, our apologies. There was some problem with the microphone, I guess. Thank you once again to Ms. Marianne Schreurs, the honorary member of LUCI, for the presentation. Thank you once again. And then moving on to our third presentation of today, the session one, that's under the topic, the spectrum of light, laser art illuminating the Han River and reinterpretation of urban nightscape. I would like to invite, if we may, soon. Thank you once again. And now I would like to invite Ms. Seungah Lee, the curator of Seoul Light Hangang Light Island Festival. So please give a big round of applause.
안녕하세요. 올해 2025년 한강 빗섬 축제에서 아트 디렉터인 이승아입니다. 오늘 제가 소개할 한강 빗섬 축제는요, 빛의 스펙트라 한강을 비추는 레이저 아트와 도시 야경에 대한 재해석이라는 주제로 소개를 좀 하고자 합니다. 10월에 올해 방금 끝난 저희 따뜻한 레이저 아트 축제인데요. 약 10일간의 축제로 2025년 10월 3일부터 10월 12일까지 한강의 뚝섬 한강공원에서 열렸었습니다. 그리고 올해로 3회를 맞는 이 축제 같은 경우는요. 설해섬 그리고 작년에 여의도를 거쳐서 올해는 뚝섬에서 열리게 되었습니다. 대표적인 내용으로는요. 첫 번째 레이저 아트 그리고 라이트런 그리고 세 번째로는 빅섬 렉처로 구성되어 있습니다. 올해 빗섬 한강 빗섬 축제의 주제는 빛의 스펙트라입니다. 빛의 스펙트라는 이제 여전히 뚝섬이라는 공간이 섬이긴 하지만 현재는 이제 육지로부터 붙어 있고 그리고 고립된 섬으로서의 역할과 과거의 유원지였던 장소성 그리고 다양한 현재는 한강 공원으로서 약 1km 이상 되는 공간에서 시민들이 좀 쉴 수 있는 그런 여유를 가지는 힐링의 공간입니다. 그래서 그 장소를 레이저 아트와 다양한 작가들과 함께 어떤 장소로서 변화를 그리고 장소 특수적인 레이저 아트를 소개함으로써 시민들이 그거를 같이 함께 향유하고 참여할 수 있는 축제로 구성해 보았습니다. 전시 동선입니다. 저희가 이제 지금 제가 발표하고 있는 이 프레젠테이션 같은 경우는 이 빗섬 축제를 구성하는 데 있어서 가장 이제 관건이 되는 한강이 좁고 긴 이제 어떻게 보면 한 1km 내외의 반경 거리 안에서 7점이라는 작품과 그 다음에 그 안에서 거리간 시민들이 움직이면서 이 작품들을 오롯하게 경험하고 즐길 수 있게 만드는 것에 좀 집중하여 보았습니다. 그래서 첫 번째 작품을 먼저 소개해 보려고 하는데요. 첫 번째 작품 같은 경우는 지금 보면 청담 이제 고가가 있는데 그 고가 아래 약 한 60m에서 90m 가량, 60m는 작품으로 형성되어 있고 그 밖에는 레이저 터널이라 그래서 앞에는 라이팅 터널 그리고 그 뒷부분은 이제 안으로 들어가시게 되면 라이팅 터널의 이제 작품을 같이 레이저와 함께 감상할 수 있는데요. 이 작품 같은 경우는 원래 기존에 그 고가 아래가 굉장히 어둡고 사람들이 다니지 않는 공간으로 알고 있습니다. 그래서 그 공간을 이제 빛으로 다시 바꿔서 다른 경험을 볼 수 있게 하는 장소 특정적인 작업을 제안했습니다. 그래서 밖으로 나오게 되면 지금 왼쪽의 두 번째 그림처럼 레이저가 이제 한강 수변 무대로까지 연결됩니다. 그래서 그 레이저 아트와 한강의 이 이제 그 내용들을 담을 수 있는 공간을 구성했는데요. 작가 유한 작가 같은 경우는 여기서 가장 중요한 포인트인 이제 지하철의 위를 지나다닙니다. 그러다 보니까 지하철의 진동과 사운드가 계속해서 울리게 되어 있습니다. 그래서 그 지하철의 사운드의 신호에 맞춰서 이 작품이 시작되고 관람객들은 신호에 맞춰서 안으로 들어가서 진동과 사운드와 레이저 아트를 함께 경험할 수 있는 공간으로 이제 구성되어 있습니다. 다음 작품입니다. 다음에 메인 작품 같은 경우는 저희가 이제 국내외 작가들이 참여했는데 여기는 팀입니다. 3명의 트리오로 구성된 이제 사운드와 비주얼, 이제 그래픽 작업이랑 모든 거를 이제 같이 통합해서 보여줄 수 있는 툰드라라는 작가의 작품인데요. 이 작품 같은 경우는 지금 천장에 보이는 것이 인공 풀립 3,000개로 되어 있습니다. 그래서 이제 지금 밖에 같은 경우는 굉장히 한강 수변의 폐쇄적인 장소로서 이제 어둡게 공간이 구성되어 있고 밖에 있다가 안으로 들어가게 되면 지금처럼 앉아서 혹은 누워서 이 공간을 오롯하게 레이저로 감상할 수가 있습니다. 이 작업 같은 경우는 한 4일간 한 30명, 40명 정도 되는 학생들이 다 같이 작업을 해서 천장에 풀린 모양의 잎을 꽂고 그 사이에 예민한 레이저 하나하나를 다 조준을 해서 맞춰서 작가님께서 이제 여기서 한 2, 3일간 정도를 계속 계시면서 이 레이저를 빛이랑 그리고 사운드와 이 안에 있는 공간을 자연에 대해서 우리가 도시를 살면서 일대에 있는 시멘트라든지 그 공간과 다른 공간을 구성함으로써 자연에 대해서 다시 한 번 더 인식할 수 있는 어떤 순간을 보여주는 공간으로서 구성되어 있습니다. 공간은 약 100평 정도가 됩니다. 다음 작품입니다. 한강 같은 경우 뚝섬은 이제 그 공간에 풀밭이 굉장히 넓게 돼 있습니다. 그래서 풀밭 공간 같은 경우는 텐트 존이라 그래서 텐트를 많이 치고 풀밭에 누워서 뭔가 피크닉을 지내는 사람들로 구성이 많이 되어 있습니다. 그러다 보니까 저희가 이 공간 내에서 좀 가족 단위의 시민들이 조금 모여서 같이 경험할 수 있는 어떤 작품이 있지 않으면 좋지 않을까라고 생각해서 이제 이 캐나다의 퀘벡의 캐나다의 비디오 파즈라는 팀입니다. 그래서 이 팀 같은 경우는 총 2개의 작품을 소개하고 있는데요. 지금 보시는 작품 같은 경우는 비치온이라는 인터랙티브 작품입니다. 작품에 이제 한 번에 20명의 사람들이 올라가게 되면 그 20명의 사람들이 서로 발판을 활용해서 센서가 있고 그 센서가 연결됨으로써 서로 연결되어지는 그 고리들이 밑에 바닥에 표현되면서 다른 사람들을 초대해서 무대로 계속해서 끌어올 수 있게 되어 있습니다. 그래서 동시에 이 발판 작업들을 움직이면서 사운드와 맞춰서 그래픽 작업들을 감상하면서 경험하고 체험할 수 있도록 구성되어 있습니다. 그리고 또 다른 공연으로는 저희가 이제 오프닝을 시작하고 나서 약 4회 정도 이틀간의 공연이 있었습니다. 이 레이저 공연 같은 경우는 작가가 만든 총 공연의 한 파트로서 시간과 물리적인 공간, 그리고 공간을 벗어난 우주로까지, 그리고 가장 그 우주를 공간을 만드는 가장 기본 요소인 액체, 기체, 고체의 형태로서 공연을 보여주고 있습니다. 중간에 보면 지금처럼 이제 여러 개의 TV들, 그리고 TV라든지 이런 모니터들을 다 악기로 변환된 조작된 악기들을 사용해서 퍼포먼스를 보여주고 있고, 이 퍼포먼스가 끝나면 이제 그 사운드에 맞춰서 아까 비추온 작업들을 관람객들이 경험할 수 있도록 약 한 10분 정도의 체인지 간격을 두고 저희가 이제 작품을 바꿔서 계속 보여줬었습니다. 그리고 서브 작품들입니다. 저희가 메인 작품 같은 경우는 이게 레이저 아트이기 때문에 아트에 집중해서 그 이전에 이 공간, 뚝섬이라는 한강 공원에서 보기 쉽지 않은 이제 장소 특성적인 그 장소에 맞는 그 공간에 대해서 구성하고 작가랑 논의해서 작품을 제안했다면, 서브 작품들은 쉽게 그 공간에 찾아가지 않아도 지나다니는 공간을 그 많은 대중들이 지나다니는 공간에 이제 빛을 통해서 이제 좀 즐거운 마음으로 통과할 수 있도록 구성했습니다. 그래서 지금 같은 경우는 옆에 원래 수변 공간이라서 그 수영장이 있던 공간인데 수영장이 이제 한철만 하기 때문에 그 이후에는 이 공간이 사실은 100m에 걸쳐서 굉장히 지겹게 지나가야 되는 어두운 공간입니다. 그래서 그곳에 움직이는 키네틱 라이팅 조명과 레이저를 활용해서 좀 즐거운 마음으로 음악과 함께 통과할 수 있도록 구성했고, 두 번째 같은 경우는 지금 분수입니다. 분수 같은 경우는 원래는 분수와 노래에 맞춰서 나오는 공간이었다면 평소 시민들이 생소하게 생각할 수 있는 전자음악이라는 새로운 장르를 소개함으로써 레이저와 사운드 아트를 결합해서 동시에 이거를 바라봄으로써 여기 있는 시민들이 함께 공감을 만들고 이 아트에 대해서 충분히 즐길 수 있도록 구성해 보았습니다. 그리고 그 다음번은 이제 여기는 편백나무가 원래 600그루에서 700그루 정도가 있는 공간입니다. 여기도 약 100m 정도 산책하는 존입니다. 그래서 이 공간 같은 경우는 라이팅과 예쁜 반딧불이라든지 혹은 레이저 아트를 잔잔하게 만들어서 힐링숲이라는 이름에 맞게 이 공간은 사색하고 쉼으로써의 산책하는 루트로서의 저희가 레이저 아트 작품들을 소개하고 있습니다. 올해 이제 마지막으로는 루미란 우주라는 이제 하늘로 향하는 빛의 이제 작은 그 분수대 앞에 장미정원이라는 이름의 정원 안에 있습니다. 그래서 이 분수 안에서 빛과 레이저와 하늘로 쏘는 레이저를 통해서 추석 때 저희가 이제 페스티벌이 열렸거든요. 그래서 소망을 빌 수 있게 만드는 달의 형상까지 좀 만들어 보았습니다. 이 외에 올해 변화된 사항으로는 올해 3회차를 맞이해서 저희가 조금 다른 이제 분야에 더 많은 이제 작가들이 참여할 수 있는 이제 제안을 해보았고, 지금 같은 경우는 젊은 아티스트 학교랑 연계해서 추석 기간에 빛 조형물이랑 빛 놀이를 같이 구성해 보았습니다. 그래서 빛 놀이를 통해서는 전통적인 놀이라든지 추석 기간에 할 수 있는 여러 가지 레이저를 활용한 사진을 찍는다든지 소망을 적는다든지 하는 단순한 놀이지만 시민들이 이제 즐거워하고 그 시간을 보낼 수 있도록 구성해서 전시 동선 사이사이에는 오롯하게 좀 즐길 수 있는 것들도 많이 구성하였습니다. 그리고 그 외에 이제 라이트런 파트인데요. 두 번째 파트인 경우는 전체가 빛이 돼서 달리는 것입니다. 그래서 일정 부분은 여기에 이제 참여비를 받고 참여 부분에 일정 부분은 시각 장애 아동을 위해서 기부가 됩니다. 그래서 지금 보시면 약 5km 구간을 걷거나 뛰는데 몸에 착용하는 이제 빛을 통해서 이제 아이디어나 그 팔에 감는 거나 봉을 가지고 뛰게 됩니다. 그래서 저희가 그 전날에 조금 더 새로운 아이디어가 있을까 해서 사전 패션쇼를 패션 동아리랑 같이 연출을 했는데 너무 안타깝게 비가 오는 바람에 취소가 돼서 저희가 아카이브 패션쇼를 작품 내에서 좀 진행해서 그 사진입니다. 그리고 마지막으로는 빗썸 렉처입니다. 빗썸 렉처 같은 경우는 빛에 대한 기술이라든지 연계된 이제 짧은 페차쿠차 형식의 6분 40초의 발표를 통해서 좀 강연을 통해서 더 발전적인 축제의 방향성과 이 도시의 빛이 앞으로 어떤 방향성 이외에도 기술이라든지 아니면 작가랑 연대한다든지 이런 여러 가지의 솔루션들을 들어볼 수 있는 그런 행사로 구성되어 있습니다. 여기까지가 제 발표고요. 지금 타임이 오버돼서 사실은 저희가 지금 영상이 하나 있는데 한 1분 정도를 같이 보실 수 있으면 4분짜리인데 좀 스킵을 해서 보고 저는 여기서 마무리하도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Let us wait for the. Let's take a look. All right, thank you very much. Why don't we give a big round of applause for Ms. Seungah Lee, the curator. Thank you very much for the excellent presentation as well. And we shall now proceed with our panel discussion. We kindly ask our three presenters and our moderator to come up on stage for the panel discussion. So I would like to welcome you up to this stage. And today's moderator is Dr. Taekmin Kim, the director of Dionic Institute as well. So welcome you up to the stage with a big round of applause. 네, 큰 박수로 모시겠습니다. And the panel discussion will be carried out both Korean and English, so please remember to use your receiver. It's placed on your table. Thank you very much, and over to you.
네, 안녕하십니까. 저는 한국에서 조명 디자인 일을 하고 있는 김택민이라고 합니다. 세션 1회 패널 토론 사회를 맡게 됐고 발표 정말 잘 들었습니다. 패널 토론은 발표자분들께 제가 개별 질문을 하나씩 드리고 그리고 공통 질문을 하나씩 드리는 순으로 좀 진행을 하고요. 시간이 좀 남으면 방청객분께 질문을 좀 받는 시간을 좀 가지려고 합니다. 제가 MC를 하려다 보니까 강연을 굉장히 집중해서 좀 들었고 개별 질문은 제가 이제 디자인 철학하고 좀 관련이 있습니다. 먼저 스탠리 테이님께 좀 질문을 좀 드리려고 합니다. 제가 좀 강연을 들었을 때 그 좋은 감정을 불러일으키는 조명 경험이라는 표현이 굉장히 좀 인상 깊었고 감정이라는 것은 그 굉장히 주관적인데 이 프로젝트를 진행할 때 감정을 구체적으로 디자인하는 방법이나 뭐 측정하는 기준이 있는지 뭐 그런 부분이 좀 궁금합니다. 답변 좀 부탁드립니다.
Okay, so that is to introduce myself. Okay, so what we've been doing for lighting industry started maybe 15, 20 years ago, right? Doing lighting products, lighting equipments, understanding about the environment and things like that. So over the years, as we try to develop our own approach to not just survive, but to stay relevant in the industry, we go into understanding the psychology of people, trying to understand how people interact with the space and how the space will stay relevant, as what I was presenting earlier. So lighting is a tool, as what Mary has shared earlier. Right? It's a tool that showcases the space, dims down the space, or totally make that place invisible to people. So how do we want to use lighting as an element to not only provide that safety aspect, but to enhance that experience for a person within that environment? So this is a topic that we're constantly looking into, studying, as I was sharing with Thomas earlier. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a doctor, I can't go into that medical explanation. But from simple sitting down by the park, having a cup of coffee, looking at people in the day, in the night, how they perceive that environment, whether do they bring their kids there, do they not bring their kids there. It gives us perspective of using our skills, using our knowledge, not just on equipment, not just in terms of lighting layout, not just in terms of coming up with PowerPoint presentation on concepts. We go back down to the basics. If you are a child today in this park, how do you want to feel? And if you are a parent bringing a young child to the space, how do you want to feel? And finally, maybe bringing your grandparents take a walk in the same space that they have lived 20, 30, 50 years ago. They no longer come back because they don't want to walk the space again. You bring them back again and you see how do they reason out the space. What kind of stories do they tell you when they were younger in that same space, when it's not so brightly lit? Because that time society, maybe you don't have the technology, you don't have that kind of affluence. Does it give you some idea of how you can use simple lightings or complicated, beautiful, colorful lightings to recreate the space? That is something that as a designer, as a lighting consultant, we often ask ourselves. So hopefully that gives some perspective to what we do.
감사합니다. 조명 디자이너 입장에서 이게 굉장히 중요한 부분이라고 좀 생각을 하고 있었습니다. 저도 다음으로 좀 메리앤 슈에르스님께 질문을 좀 드리고 싶은데, 이게 빛을 디자인하는 게 아니라 밤의 도시 자체를 새롭게 좀 디자인해야 된다라는 말씀이 굉장히 좀 인상 깊었습니다. 그렇다면 조명 디자이너나 도시 기획자 분들이 단순히 빛을 연출하는 역할을 넘어서 도시의 밤을 하나의 경험으로 설계하기 위해서는 어떤 변화와 노력이 좀 필요할지 좀 그런 부분에 대해서 궁금합니다.
Actually, you have to be open all the time. When I was listening to the answer that Stanley gave about how you deal with the emotions, there was nothing wrong with the answer, but you may add something. What we all tend to do is think that all people live the same lives as we do, and they don't. So you always have to be on the outlook that things don't work for certain people. And it's not because they are neurodivergent, but just because they are in social different circumstances. In the Netherlands, people with high education actually loved the COVID epidemic in Amsterdam because they all worked at home and they found the city so wonderful to bike in with all the lovely buildings, and the people that actually did the work, cleaning in the hospitals, dreaded going outside because outside they heard the ambulances and all of the co-workers got ill. So depending on your circumstances, public space will look very different to you. And as we here are together, we all had a certain education. We have all a joint look at looking at the world, even if we are very different from background. So that's the thing that you really need. Challenge the assumptions you make doing your work. It's not that your intentions aren't good. It's not that you never, ever will have the whole picture. Is this oh yeah, and also be proud of what you are able to do. Because in the end, there must be somebody who is able to actually design environments.
네, 답변 감사합니다. 제가 다음 좀 질문을 좀 해드릴까 합니다. 이승하 총감독님께 질문을 하고 싶은데요. 이번에 서울라이트 한강 빗섬 축제에 대해서 이게 주변 반응을 보니 이게 서울의 그냥 일반적인 조명 쇼를 넘어서 서울의 야간 이미지에 대한 브랜드를 새롭게 만들어가는 듯한 느낌을 좀 들었습니다. 감독님께서 생각하시는 서울이 앞으로 빛의 도시로 나아가기 위해서 방향성은 좀 어떤 게 있을까요?
요번에 올해로 사실은 이 빗섬 축제가 3회를 맞고 있고 지금 장소를 사실은 한강의 수변이라는 공간들, 그리고 3도 3선을 잇는 야간 이제 공간이 사실은 밤이 되면 조명의 기능, 그럼 저희가 어둠을 밝힌다든지 혹은 이제 기능성을 이제 조명, 거리 조명이라든지 공원의 사람의 안전을 위한 조명 정도까지만 밝히는 걸로 끝나는데, 이 한강의 주변에 있는 그 섬을 돌면서 이렇게 아트라는, 특히 레이저 아트는 사실은 저희가 일반적으로 보기 힘든 공연장에서 실내에서 보기는 이제 어렵지 않지만 예술 공간이라든지 미술관에서 보기에는 그렇게 쉽지 않은 그런 레이저라는 기술을 활용해서 도시의 빛을 밝히고 그 일상의 공간을 좀 다른 공간으로 치환해서 시민들에게 휴식이라든지 혹은 일상적이지 않은 다른 공간을 경험하게 함으로써 새로운 인사이트라든지 새로운 영감을 주는 그런 공간으로 바꾸는 그런 이제 새로운 페스티벌로서의 방향성이 지속되려면 사실은 많은 시민들의 참여라든지 그리고 이게 지속 가능한 지속성을 가져야 된다고 생각을 합니다. 그러기 위해서는 사실은 여기에 참여한 예술가들, 저희가 일반적으로 미술관에서 설치를 하고 어떤 빗작품을 만드는 것과 야외 공간, 공원이라는 공간, 도심의 한복판에 있는 그런 공간에서 빛을 만들어내는 일은 다릅니다. 그래서 그런 프로세스에 사실 전문가들이 그렇게 많지는 않습니다. 예술가도 마찬가지고. 그래서 사실은 국제교류를 통해서 저희가 해외의 다양한 기술을 통해서 빛을 밝히는 분들도 초대를 해서 이번에 보였었고, 한국의 또 젊은 작가들을 지원해서 조금 더 큰 규모의 저런 장소 특수성인 작업들을 보여짐으로써 격려도 같이 하고 있습니다. 그래서 이 여러 가지들이 다 종합적으로 지속되어야 될 필요가 있다고 생각합니다. 전문적인 부분에 있어서 이 빛을 가지고 어떤 풍경을 만들어내고 시민들이랑 교감을 할 수 있는 대중적인 예술로서 혹은 예술만의 오롯한 어떤 미학적인 감성도 갖출 필요가 있다고 생각해서 이 레이저 아트 그리고 빗섬 축제의 지속성을 위해서는 좀 다양한 분야의 전문적인 지원이 필요하다고 생각을 합니다.
예, 감사합니다. 이번에는 세 분께 공통적으로 좀 질문 드리고 싶은데요. 한 분씩 좀 답변을 좀 해주시면 될 것 같습니다. 이게 발표자분들께서 생각하시는 게 세션 주제랑은 좀 관련이 있는데 이상적인 밤의 도시는 어떤 모습이신가요? 발표자분께서 생각하실 때 한 분씩 한번 좀 말씀을 해주시면 될 것 같은데 스탠리님부터 말씀해 주십시오.
Sure. Well, I think once you start doing international project, you can take on you probably will have a very different perspective to how you apply your skill and your knowledge. I'm sure we all started from the city, from a different town, coming from where you are come from. But once you start to go international, maybe you will see that different city, different culture, different stage of development for the area that you're going to be working in has very different expectation, different resources, and different cultural elements as to how it is. So there's no specific, I mean, at least in my own opinion, there's no specific answer as to how a city or in the night should be like. It really depends back to the resources and the cultural elements of that specific city. Just as an example, I was sharing earlier, there are some cities that are constantly very prone to natural disasters. How do you then want to have the appropriate lighting infrastructure to cater for that kind of environment while sustaining the livelihoods of people there at night, or maybe even in the day? So maybe that's something for all of us to think. It's not just about colorful interactive lighting, maybe. It's not just about safety, well-illuminated street lamps. Maybe it's just a little bit of everything. So, essentially, if it's back to the answer, a simple answer would be to look back at the city, the province, the town that you're working on, reconnect back to the people there, and then look at whatever that they already have or whatever lacking there. You then use your skill, your tools to apply appropriately. So hopefully that is a good enough answer, I guess.
Actually, I totally agree with the gist of what Stanley is saying. I just want to add something. It will be interesting to see in how many ways what is actually created in that city can be connected to what is done in the city. So you gave the example of the religion that was there, the history that was there. You can also think about the education system, the vocational crafts, and everybody then has a different approach to what is there in public space, but they can all relate to it in a certain way. And for instance, with a festival, a light festival, you can just show it much more, and then it will be a celebration of the whole city. But we also have to be very careful. The examples, especially that you gave, were overwhelming. But what you also saw was that people were just engaged with that. And actually, in the day-to-day public space, that's not what you want to have. You want people to be able to live their life in the night time, and not just to be people visiting a museum. We don't want our public spaces to become like Disneyland or something like that. We want to live in it, and to have certain areas in which these things are overwhelming there is wonderful, but it doesn't work if it's all over the place, and it doesn't work if it's there all the time. So, yeah, in the end, you want to live, and you don't even want to feel pressured in looking at an artwork in public space. It's there. It can be just background. So just a nuance on the wonderful things that are created by my neighbors.
굉장히 많은 부분에서 공감을 하고 있습니다. 네. 밤의 풍경에 대해서 사실은 일상이 사실은 매일같이 야경이 반짝거리고 화려하고 이렇다면 굉장히 힘들 거라고 생각하는 부분은 저도 동감을 하고 있고요. 그리고 일상이 사실은 이제 서울이 굉장히 다른 도시에 비해서 바쁘고 빠르게 돌아가는 도시입니다. 그리고 기술도 그 어느 도시에 비해서 그 빠르는 발전도가 굉장히 빠르다고 생각을 합니다. 그렇기 때문에 사실은 빛 중에서도 레이저 아트라는 사실 시각예술에서 다양하게 많이 쓰이지 않는 그 분야의 축제로 만들고 이런 것들이 특별한 경험이라든지 공공 영역의 공공 장소에서 공공을 위한 빛의 활용으로는 사실은 그게 가끔 일어나는 축제로서의 역할로는 굉장히 좋지만 이게 일상의 밤의 풍경이라고 하면 엄청 그 일대를 사는 사람들에게는 빛소음이라든지 혹은 일상의 풍경이 이렇다면 저도 사실은 살기 어려울 것 같습니다. 그래서 밤의 풍경에 대해서는 사실은 이런 예기치 않은 순간에서 만나는 축제, 일회성 혹은 이제 가끔 일어나는 이 축제를 통해서 그 경험을 빛에 대한 새로운 경험을 공유하는 그 공간과 시간 그거를 함께하는 시민들의 공공 영역에서 일어날 수 있는 빛일 때만 사실은 그 밤의 풍경이 또 필요하다고는 생각을 하고 있습니다.
네, 답변 감사합니다. 시간이 조금 남았는데 혹시 방청객분 중에 질문을 하고 싶으신 분 있으신가요?
May I ask a question to the audience?
아, 예. 예.
Maybe I didn't reach. Well, I am extremely interested in how you think that our perspective on public space and how we will change because of the use of the iPhones. Because what you see is actually people bring private space into the public space. And going from the airport to the hotel, I didn't see anybody not looking at their phone. So what do you think will be the effect of that on the things, on the landscapes that we are creating? Are they totally obsolete because actually people aren't there because they're in their phone, in their private life? Or do you see it differently? Anyone's guess? You? Yeah. Well, I'll get you a phone. Oh, already.
네. We have a big experiential things about it. When you cross the street, we have a lamp sign, green and red. You're supposed to stop and go. We put the green and red sign on the street. So while you are looking at your cell phone, you could at the same time see the signal. Either you could go or stop. So it happens to all the time and everywhere in the world. So in Korea, we already adopted it and kind of accepted how the people behavior different. It changes. So I guess it's a phenomenon already happening to anywhere. So we have to, get over it.
No, it's wonderful that you adapted it because then there were you try not to have accidents, so that's wonderful. But I'm just wondering how the public space is perceived in the mind of the people that are really there. So psychologically speaking, phenomenologically speaking, so from what is actually happens, because research shows that most of the times we aren't even aware of our environment if we are not looking at our phone, let alone if we are there all the time. So, but it's a wonderful idea just to do that. Brilliant.
혹시 질문 또 있으신 분 있으신가요? 아 예. 마이크 좀 갖다 주십시오.
세 분 발표 정말 잘 들었습니다. 우선 지속 가능성을 위해 조명을 줄여야 한다는 주장이랑 도시의 활력을 위해 더 사용해야 한다는 주장 중에서 어느 쪽에 더 동의를 하시는지 궁금합니다. 세 분 다.
그거를 하나만 선택하는 것보다도 밸런스가 중요한 것 같다고 생각합니다. 예를 들면 도시에 필요한 조명이 지나칠 때는 저희도 사실은 사운드가 노이즈 일어나는 것처럼 빛도 조명이 세면 사실은 그것도 빛 노이즈가 될 수 있다고 생각하기 때문에 그게 적절하게 빛을 잘 사용해서 어떤 순간이라든지 어떤 경험을 만들어낼 때는 그게 활력을 주는 시민들에게 쉼을 주는 공공 장소에서 빛의 역할을 좋은 쪽으로 사용할 수 있지만 그렇지 않을 경우에서는 사실은 좀 빛이 너무 지나치게 많다든지 지금 사실은 도시에서 저희도 빛이 굉장히 많은 것들을 실감하는 거를 광화문이나 이런 데 가면 느낄 수가 있습니다. 하지만 그게 좋은 공간에서 공공 영역에서 잘 활용될 수 있다면 시민들에게 굉장히 다양한 인사이트와 영감을 줄 수 있는 공간으로 보여질 수 있다고 생각합니다. 밸런스가 중요할 것 같습니다.
Okay, thank you for that question. When I was doing lighting many years ago, when LED first came into the industry, there's a Sanbei in the industry that told me, being humans, initially we will use LEDs because it saves electricity. But being human, that's always pushing the frontier of what you think you can achieve in terms of your potential. After saving all the electricity, you're going to add back, and you're going to add back a lot more LEDs than what you could have saved, and then you light up the whole space as it is. So that's just human. So essentially, in relation to that question, is yes, we should be reducing, but it's not going to happen. I'm quite sure. This is human, right? For any cities that are growing, you want to have a better life, you're going to do more. For any cities that are already there, you want to compete and do better than your neighbors. So you're not going to go back to the wheel and just put some street lamps and that's that. Let's be very honest about it. So in understanding that philosophy, we put that into a practice whereby we look at the engineering method of statement. We look at not just energy efficiency frameworks, whether it's in US LEEDs or in Asia, we have the green mark. But we look at a combination of how using different kinds of materials being sustainable, being ease of replacement, so you don't change the whole thing, maybe just certain parts. You integrate that into an overall lighting design planning. And that can be very challenging actually when we first started doing this kind of approach because it's too multidisciplinary. You got to be like a manufacturer, telling manufacturers what to do. You got to be a lighting specialist, as good as you can tell LG to co-develop some more efficient OLEDs. Next, you're going to be the consultant, as you always are, to influence, to speak to the client, to get them to buy into your concept. So you're a sales guy. How are you going to combine all these things? And finally, with all that, you need to come up with an engineering approach that convince all your M&E consultants, your contractors to execute and do all these customized solutions. Not many companies can, not many individuals can. But if you can achieve that, I challenge this to the community at large, is if you can do that, yes, the world, we probably can have a very efficient, effective aesthetic space, but also sustainable. Beyond that or before that happens, with that skills, we can all try, and we just keep trying, right? So I hope that gives some perspective.
예, 답변 감사합니다. 혹시 또 질문 있으신 분 있으신가요? 네. 질문이 없으시면 요걸로 이제 패널 토론 마치 여기 한 분 있으십니다.
Hello, my name is Faiz, Mayor of Batang from Indonesia. I specifically want to ask to Mary Ann, your slide you mentioned about the lighting roadmap of Eindhoven. Can you describe more detail about that? Because as a city, Batang, as a city that just starting to develop a new industrial city, our challenge is to ensure 100% lighting in public space. And the second question to Stanley from Singapore. When should we move from simply focusing on lighting up public street to using lighting as way to enliven and highlight public space? Thank you.
If you look at the road map, what you can see is that we went from a city that allowed companies to use the city as a test bed to a city that was together with the industry, because we had a lighting industry, Philips of course, in our city, to develop certain things together, but what we actually wanted is to be co-creational with all our citizens. So the roadmap is on one hand on the lighting, the development in the lighting technology. The other thing is in the smart city technology, and then you have the societal development, and the fourth development is within our local government organization, because everything has to be there at the same time. That's the reason that it's a roadmap, because some things are predictable that they will be there, but they are not there at the moment. In a way, we were trying to make the most of what we had, because we had a company that dealt with lighting in our midst. We have a technical university, so all the things that were developing within the technology were available. We had a technical university that could help with the roadmap, and we had citizens that were willing to participate. So putting it back in your situation, it's very hard to, well, actually it's what Stanley said about making environments in public space. They always will be different depending on your circumstances. So look at the strengths that you have within your city and see what they can bring to a kind of development that befits what you want to achieve. Because we wanted, on the one hand, to make the technology of the next century in a way for our companies, and on the other hand, basically it was about giving our citizens the best deal. And what Stanley was also saying was, well, for the best deal, you don't always need the best technology in the world. So see what it can bring in your situation. And actually, Stanley is doing something wonderful he's now blushing. But this is important, it's also interesting to the rest of you. What he's trying to create is an academy, and they already have done it in a way, an academy for young professionals of the Asian in the Asian countries to help them get as much knowledge as they need to work in their own cities. And there's even money there to create a certain, well, test beds or so, and test beds that are not only there to test, but also continue to function after that. So you have real life possibility to. This is quite a commercial for you, isn't it?
It's okay. It's more academic.
No, the interesting thing is this isn't a commercial because it's not about asking for money. It's actually also bringing money to see if it works for you. So basically my advice is talk to Stanley, but also talk to other cities that are engaged in things like that. This is, of course, nearby. It's wonderful that the city of Seoul organizes things like this, because in Europe is a bit different and probably, but well, don't try to follow us unless you really want to be the technology city of Indonesia. Create your own roadmap, and if you want help in creating the roadmap that befits you, I can also make the connections to people who are able and probably willing to do that with you.
예, 답변 감사합니다. 시간이 타임 오버가 돼서 이건 패널 토론이 여기까지 좀 해야 될 것 같고요. 답변 정말 감사드리고 고생 많으셨습니다. 이것으로 패널 토론 마치겠습니다. 예, 감사합니다.
Please give a big round of applause. Thank you to our moderator, Dr. Tae-min Kim, and also to our panelists. Please take your seats. Thank you once again. Thank you. And we have just ended our first session and our panel discussion to end the session 1.